Good morning, Story Trading VIPs. Welcome to Pre-Market Prep. We got a very newsy morning this morning. A lot of geopolitics, a lot of stuff that does not look great. So we got to jump into it. You can see QQQ, SPY, ARK are down. Now, part of that downtick accelerated this morning when initial unemployment claims came in better than expected. And, right now we're in that regime of good news is bad news. It means the Fed can continue to be hawkish with increasing interest rates. Now, it's continuing to go down. As I was getting into the office, I was listening to the ECB press conference. They raised, as expected, rates by 0.75%. Now, I mean, it's expected today, but it wasn't expected as of a few days ago. But already, I think that was mostly priced into the market that was coming. But the commentary, I'm not sure that was priced in. Man, extremely bearish on economic growth in Europe. Very, very bad outlook on inflation. Very bad outlook on energy costs, dampening people's consumer discretionary spend. I mean, that was like a dire kind of press conference. I had to leave it in the middle. So I think that's weighing on the market. So that's already two things we got, right? The good news is bad news with the unemployment, the ECB commentary, press conference raising by 0.75%. And the third thing, which is probably still weighing, very complicated, is what's going on with the gas pipeline from Russia. We had a whole meeting on this yesterday, a lot of great participation, great collaboration on it. And that is also causing a lot of crazy price action in oil, in alternative energy. So we'll try to get to some of it. You can see we're also looking at TLT and UUP. I guess this changed with that 0.75% move by the ECB, right? You can see now bonds selling off and the dollar getting stronger. Although, this is really complicated. A lot of moving parts here. So keeping an eye on that because quantitative tightening, but so many different dynamics with what's going on now with the ECB and energy and everything else. But so hard to get a clear indication of what's going on. We did identify a website we'll be looking at weekly to see how much quantitative tightening is happening, to see what kind of impact that'll have. So I want to talk about the geopolitics around oil and energy and the crazy price action in oil in just a second. But also before we do that, just want to remind people of where we are in these major indices. You can see still in bearish territory. There's your 50 DMA above you, right? That's your resistance level. And obviously, possibly downside to the lows, prior lows of the 200-week moving average. The 20-week MA also right above you, resistance. So those are your levels. Okay. Energy. So oil was crazy yesterday because of, first of all, natural, right? It started with natural gas going crazy Monday when markets were closed. It exploded in Europe, and then it went down on Tuesday by a lot. Why? Because for every action, there's a, reaction, right? So Europe came out, UK commentary on oil, and there were a couple things. Let me go into the news here. So yesterday, there was this commentary. It says UK PM Trust said, I want us to use more UK oil, gas, and nuclear. So there's been a bid for nuclear on that. There's been a bid for solar. We'll talk about in a second. But what happened yesterday also in that article, and that it talked about price caps, right? But these price caps were for the end consumer. So it would be like taxes would have to be raised, I guess, to make the oil producers whole, right? The subsidies go to the consumers, so they get caps on their energy bills, right? So we had some crazy price action yesterday, which it seemed people were reacting to that, and it didn't really make a lot of sense at the time because the price caps were not on the energy companies; it was on the consumer bills, meaning the government would subsidize the consumer. They wouldn't cap what the energy companies are really charging. So we had this big move down in energy, would also affected coal. But look what came out this morning. in this article. UK government expected to announce dozens of new North Sea oil and gas licenses. Okay. So maybe this was expected. This is more of the sentiment that was probably driving oil going down. It said there could be as many as 130 licenses. So, and the other thing, when you see Europe doing this, which has been one of the leaders in the ESG movement, it's a sentiment that governments around the world maybe will start doing this. Maybe the United States will start doing it, right? So there's a now movement, a realization, a desperation that, hey, forget about green energy and ESG. If we got to issue these licenses, we got to issue them, right? So maybe that's why oil was really down yesterday, getting a little bit of a rebound today. Now, what are some of the other price implications and possible trade ideas that's stemming out of this? Obviously, again, this goes back to Russia cutting off the gas pipeline to Europe, and people are very concerned about a very bad winter in Europe. So we're seeing solar energy, we're seeing uranium and solar energy getting a bid. You can see that in the TAN ETF, which is looking really, really. You can double tap on this chart in mobile, and we'll zoom in just into this chart so you can get a better look at it. And I know I apologize for the glitches, connectivity glitches coming in and out. I think I've ruled out my hardware. We got to talk to the streaming software provider and see what's going on there. But in any case, you can see TAN. I'm putting this out there again because our community has been on top of uranium, but we have not been on top of solar. And solar has been really great. You see F Solar and ENPH. First Solar and ENPH got some big upgrades from Goldman Sachs, I believe it was this morning. Yep, 172 target on First Solar, and ENPH from Goldman Sachs at 328 target. And these are both at least at 5-year highs, probably all-time highs. I can only see 5 years on these TD Ameritrade charts. So these stocks are gapping up to all-time highs. First Solar, ENPH. And again, you can see the TAN ETF and all their top assets. Those are the top two, ENPH and First Solar. So this is one of the things that's happening. You got the sentiment tailwind because of the natural gas pipeline being cut off to Germany. And you're seeing also that tailwind in uranium stocks. And we're going to look at that URNM ETF to take a look at what's going on in uranium. So those are places where maybe some of the money is going to be flowing to as the major indices go down. Perhaps you do well there. Now, yesterday we had a really good session. I was talking about another play is coal. And I know Matt's been talking about this in the rooms for quite a while, but I didn't fully understand it. Yesterday, we really talked about it in detail, really got a good understanding of why coal can be a benefit. You can ship this coal much easier. The United States can ship it out to Europe to help with their energy crisis. So, and it's very cheap. PE is 5 here on BTU. Recently, it got a pullback on that news of the pipeline. You can see it gapped up and gave it all back. So perhaps a good entry here. You see 50 DMA support as well at 22.56 and the resistance there at 25. So that's the story on call. I'm definitely interested in that. And Arch is another one you can look at. Then MOS is one of the fertilizer stocks. We talked about that. With the higher natural gas prices, which can help the fertilizer stocks. Now, a bunch of other news out this morning. Of course, now the major indices are really weighing, continuing to go down. But there's a Tesla news out of deliveries being a record in Shanghai, the Shanghai factory doing record production and delivery over there. So will that benefit Tesla? I'm not a Tesla bug. I don't know a lot about it. I don't pay close attention to it. Maybe you guys do. So I wanted to make sure you got that news. Plug also got looks like a big deal here, 50 megawatt deal for green energy. If you're one of those Plug investors, you may want to take a look at that. I don't follow Plug closely either, but this falls under that alternative energy tailwind that we're seeing in solar, and uranium. So speaking of the EV news there with Tesla, another one that I remember to catch my eye is GOEV. This has been taken down a lot. So it is now at that gap. It filled that gap here at 270. Is it a good buy here, filling the gap at 270? Maybe. I don't know. Definitely risky with the overall market. If the overall market keeps going down, maybe this keeps on heading down. I don't know, but I just wanted to point out a gap fill on GOEV. That's often a possibility for an entry. FREY, I put it on here because early this morning there was a big bid gapping up. You can see that there. And even before 7 a.m., there was a larger bid. So I don't know if there was any news. It pulled back here. It's above the 20 DMA. We did talk about this yesterday. We talked about it last Wednesday in our collaborative session. Goldman Sachs is really behind this one, $19 price target. Recently got a deal that could be worth $3 billion over 5 years. So I just wanted to bring that up because of this strange pre-market action, but it has given it all up. There was some news in CZOO. There's another EV company, Canoe, CZOO. They announced some sort of restructuring, winding down European business, which will allow them, apparently they're saying, to reach profitability without raising more money. So that's always a very important initiative. I'm not in it. Do you trust management here? How well do you know the story? If you do trust management, if you know the story, this is could be a very, very important announcement, because that's the main thing that's taken risk assets down, is because they're not profitable, but yet they may have to raise money. And when they have to raise money, it's going to be on bad terms, bad dilution. That's what sends risk assets down. So if you can come up, find the risk asset where they've restructured things or hit an inflection point and say, hey, we don't have to raise money, that's going to be a real positive. But these types of restructuring news stories often lead to big days in the stock. So that's something to possibly look at. TMUS here had a very strong close yesterday. It looked like the Apple news of the new iPhones, iPhone 14 being released Friday, was the catalyst. It looks like it for the end of the day close here. Right after the close, they released some deals, and $1,000 off a new iPhone came right out at 4:07 p.m. So they're on top of that. Capitalizing on the sentiment of the new iPhones there. T-Mobile trying to open above the 20 DMA this morning, near all-time highs. This is maybe a place to be a little bit safe. Telecom, speaking of telecom, I do want to mention, actually, let me just mention GSAT, because that was had a crazy volatile day in association with Apple. We avoided this because we did some quick research. If you look at the news over here, and you scroll down to one of these items yesterday. Now, people who are following GSAT closely, they know what this was all about. So they didn't get sucked into that big pop. But if you didn't know about it, we had to read the news quickly. And this is what we found. Let me see if we can find it over here. Takes shape. All right, this article right here, 2:44 p.m. I saw this one and I noticed this. Let me show you what I noticed. It says, the satellite company earlier this year said it had a deal with an unnamed customer that would fund up to 95% of its capital expenditure for a project with at least 17 new satellites. Okay. So this was known information, right? So for a lot of traders, it may have been a sell the news. Maybe there was some disappointment in there. And that's why you saw the crazy price action with that big move up and then giving it all up. So when I saw that, I avoided this completely. Dropped that in the VIP trading room. I don't know much else about this company, but just wanted to point that out, and the importance of expectations. And sometimes that news is already out there ahead of time. And then the actual official news is a sell the news. All right. Want to point out COMM. This is one Chris Tarbert has been really pushing. We changed the name of the Clearfield Research Group. If you remember Clearfield, so this is all about like the telecom connectivity, high-speed internet. And this one was a huge winner for the whole community. Of course, if you were on the wrong side of it, you got in too late. Been a dangerous market, down 30%. But here's another one in the same space, much larger and much cheaper in terms of its PE, COMM, in the same segment with a ton of insider buys recently. So COMM, can this be one that pulls, I don't want to say pulls a Clearfield, but who knows? Maybe. Now, the one caveat with COMM, they have a ton of debt, but their PE much, much better than Clearfield. Much larger company with a ton of insider buying almost every day here the last couple of weeks. COMM. So we're talking more and more about that stock. I do want to point out Celsius. It again tested and held that $93 Pepsi low. So don't talk to me about fundamentals. The chart tells you what a stock is worth over here. And this bottoming out at $93 on the first day after the Pepsi release tells you the market says this is worth at least $93. We have double support coming here at 91, 92 as a 50 DMA rises, and obviously sentiment going to be very, very high for this stock with Pepsi behind them. So I think it's going to be perpetually overvalued, and fundamental investors may miss further upside in the stock in the coming years. Now, caveat is the market, and if the market crashes, all bets are off. But for now, $93 has had like a quintuple support that held over there. So that's been a key if you looked at that price the day of that Pepsi deal. All right, couple other things. VTSI finally got the news, and we've been talking about this. And you know what? I did end up selling all of my trading shares yesterday. I didn't get the movement I wanted. I still have all of my core position. Didn't sell any of my core, but I did sell all of my trading shares. Got in a good price at 540. Ended up selling between 570 and 595. All of my shares. So but this proved yesterday, because this was not out anywhere. Benzinga didn't have 9 million. You know, the only place you knew about the 9 million was that government website. And who really knew about that unless you're part of our community? So this here proves that most of the price action and most of the holders in VTSI are already in all of our WhatsApp groups. And the movement of that $9 million order already happened over here, mostly with this big candle here on September 1st. So could it have secondary moves as new investors hear about it? Yes, that could happen. So right now you're seeing a sell the news, maybe support at the 200 DMA at 568, 570. You get new investors over time as they find out about this press release. But for me, I sold all my trading shares. I put some of it to work in XXII because this has been battered, and I know Polo likes it. And I like Trust Polo's opinions on this. Near 52-week lows, actually yesterday, 2 days ago, new 52-week low. But then they had some news about expanding sales. Let me see, here it is. Plans to launch VLN cigarette brand in Colorado, and it talks about their pilot program, and it did well. Expand Illinois sales. So that all happened. So I'm thinking maybe now it's a catalyst. I averaged down a little bit because I am down on XXII. So that's something I did. Tried to sell VTSI on the pop and buy some XXII on the bottom. Try that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Now, QUIK had some looks like it was some big news over here, and I got to be careful because wouldn't necessarily chase, but because of the market. But this bounced off to the 200 DMA yesterday. This morning, $6.9 million contract, fairly significant compared to an $80 million market cap. Also, if you look into the details of this contract, it says it could be worth, it's 6.9 million now, but it could be worth, I think they said 72 million over multiple years. I don't know what multiple years are, but looks like it possibly a big deal for this tiny company that's been on our radar, semiconductor company. I like that it bounced off the 200-day moving average. So I'm not chasing this. I'm not buying it here at the 681 ask, but it's something I'll be looking at today. And maybe if I get a good price, I'll get into that stock. It's been on my watch list for a long time. All right, so we're going to continue watching Rumble. We have the vote next week. I think dips are going to be buyable until that vote or the day before, September 14th. Probably a good idea to take some off the table. I think this can get very volatile. I've done a ton of analysis, dropping lots of research and nuggets into this. I've given some information about what I'm thinking about fair value. I think 15 to 20 is probably going to be rich. So 15 to 20 range is where I'll be taking some off the table. 10 to low teens or below 10, which it could happen. This could go below 10 right after the merger vote. Like those are prices I'd be buying out. So be careful about upcoming crazy volatility for CFVI. Okay. FAZE, I'm watching because this could be like a meme stock. I briefly mentioned this in the research room. Unfortunately, I don't get charts on this one. So I don't know. Like I love my chart. Maybe I'll look at it on desktop, but I can't tell you much here because I don't have a chart on FAZE. But that's an interesting segment to me that could get a lot of investor interest that fundamentalists won't necessarily understand. And the company could grow into its valuation potentially, but more research is required. But that's something I'm keeping an eye on. So we'll leave it at that. Waiting for Geo news. Hasn't happened yet. and doesn't look like it's going to be a great day. We'll see if this is priced in or not. We'll see if it reverses, but things don't look good geopolitically. And with the unemployment being good and ECB raising rates and really warning about recession, energy crisis, things are not really looking great on a macro level. So I think you really got to worry about those downside targets we noted earlier. Gave you a bunch of other potential trade ideas. I hope some of that works out for everybody. And we will talk to you soon. Collaborate in the rooms, guys. Thank you for joining.